Familia, welcome to the Latino Leadership Circle podcast, Cafecito Conversation for October 2021. We haven't been live for a while, and we decided let's go live in October in the fall. And it is a blessing to have you with us, our Facebook audience, those that are seeing us through Facebook. We want to say hello. Feel free to say hello later on. And we encourage you to write comments in the comments area for this broadcast, and later on ask some questions. Today we are honored. We're so honored to discuss the life of Mamaleo. And Mamaleo, and we'll give her full name, the name that is her official name later on. But Mamaleo has been a significant figure in church history, New York City, really the world. Her impact has spanned multiple cities and multiple locations, and has affected many well-known ministers, and has touched, I think, everyone in their family has someone who's been touched by Mamaleo some way, somehow, or knows somebody. And we want to really take this time to lift up someone who is a hero among a ministry and really in the city. And we want to be able to take this opportunity also to speak about some other activities that are going on that are going to educate the people of God regarding this woman of God today. I am joined by some of my esteemed colleagues, the elder Belinda Pasafaro, amen, the Reverend Dr. Orlando Crespo, and also a special guest that we have today, which Orlando will be introducing. I'm a Reverend Dr. Luis Alvarez, and it is my pleasure to start the conversation. Dr. Orlando, would you begin?
Sure. Well, before we talk about the esteemed pioneer, Mamaleo, we want to get to know our guest a little bit more, Reverend Jonathan Roque Sr. There is a junior. And so I just want to give you a little bit of information about Reverend Roque. He's an ordained minister in the Council of the Damascus Christian Churches here in the Bronx. He's a former bishop of the Damascus Council, former bishop. Probably his biggest claim to fame, he's been married to Sonia for 36 years. That's incredible. You've got me beat by 3 years, so congratulations. You also have, Reverend Roque also has 3 adult children, Brandon, Imari, and Jonathan. And that's how we got to know each other, was through your son, Jonathan Roque Jr., who worked a few years with me in the Lafayette ministry within a varsity. And in fact, he met his wife at a Lafayette conference we were doing together in Philadelphia. And then through him, I got to know you, which was a wonderful thing, because I thought, Jonathan Jr. is amazing. And then when I met you, I thought, okay, now I understand why this young man is such an amazing leader, because his dad is that. And then presently, Roque is pastoring the Hunts Point Damascus Christian Church here in the Bronx as well, and pursuing his D.Min in Latinx leadership at the New York Theological Seminary. So, Reverend Roque, we're happy to have you here. We wanted to just kind of start off. We're all going to we each have a question or two. But I think my simple question is just, who is this woman, Mamaleo? I think people locally have heard about her, but there are a lot of people who probably haven't. It'd be helpful just for you to kind of assume that we don't know her. What would you tell us about who she is?
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for this invitation to be here to speak about our illustrious co-founder. Mamaleo was an incredible woman. Just to give you a little bit of my pedigree, I was born and raised in Damascus. My parents were actually married by Francisco Rosado, which is the co-founder of the Council of Damascus Christian Churches. So I've been part of Damascus since I was born. I've had the privilege of speaking and sharing with Mamaleo, meeting her in my youth, and seeing her throughout the years. So who was she? Well, Mamaleo, her full name is Leoncia Rosado and Rousseau. Mamaleo was born in Toa Alta in Puerto Rico on April 11th, 1912. It was there that she heard the voice of God calling her into service at a revival meeting led by the Disciples of Christ in the island of Puerto Rico in 1932. She became a Pentecostal and received a calling to go into ministry, and she preached throughout Puerto Rico and had to battle sexism in the ministry. Remember, that time was not an easy time for women in ministry. In fact, women were never, ever pastors. She was one of the first pastors and at one point presiding bishop of our council at a time where you didn't see women in ministry. She had a vision of God to come to New York and to share the word of the Lord. There she, when she came to New York, she was under the ministry of Francisco Olazabal in Spanish Harlem, and she grew under that ministry. And then from there, Francisco and Leoncia went on to start the Damascus Christian Church, which became the Council of Damascus Christian Churches later on. The council was established in 1939. Of course, there's wonderful things I could say about Sister Leo. First of all, she was named Mama Leo for a few reasons. She started it was a grassroots drug rehab ministry, and alcoholics, drug addicts, sex workers came into the church and they heard the gospel. And as people were breaking the habit, they would cry out to her, calling her Mama, and therefore that name stuck as Mama Leo. She was a woman short in stature, but not in power. She had long red hair, and she preached with authority. There are stories of her ministering God's word and people just getting set free from drug addiction right in the service. So she had an incredible ministry, influenced other women in ministry. Reverend Amy Cortese was one of the women that was influenced by her ministry as well. I have to say that she's left a mark for women in ministry. And I believe that her legacy will continue to live on. I'll stop right there. There's so much that I could say, but we have a short time limit. But a wonderful ministry.
Brother Roque, as you were sharing, I remember in the 80s, my mom and I, who had heard about Mamaleo, and we were working in urban ministry, and there were members of the community struggling with addiction, really just having a very difficult time. And we had heard about this more holistic approach to wellness, right? Christ-centered programming and El Espíritu Santo derramado, rompiendo cadenas, right? And we went to the Bronx. Remember, it took us almost 2 hours from our end of Brooklyn. And we were able to go to a service, and there was Mamaleo. And you're right, she was small in physical stature, but what a giant spiritually. And as soon as we walked into that space, like, we just knew we are on sacred ground. She was just a powerhouse, like incredibly inspiring. And here was, Mom and I, who were very involved in ministry and also had confronted, patriarchal structures, having limited opportunities in leadership within our own church community. And there we go and see this incredible woman who just defied all these social, cultural, religious barriers, right, that have been imposed on us historically. And she was such an inspiration to us. There was this feeling of, if Mamaleo could do this and transform so many lives and be a model for the country and for other programs, then we too can respond to that call of God, even as single women. Who is to say, right, who God has called and who God hasn't, and why should we be hindered by gender, as we had been mistakenly taught, right, from the pulpit.
Yes.
So I have to say, she inspired my mom, who then went on to become ordained and start her own ministry, Hijas de Consolación. She inspired me and so many other women like us throughout New York City at that time. So for me, she is definitely one of our unsung heroes of our faith and our city. And I am so glad tonight that we have an opportunity to celebrate her life, her memory, her legacy, and all that she has meant to so many of us.
I would like to mention that many of what we would call the who's who in ministry came out of that crusade. We could talk about Reverend Dr. Gerald Kaufman, a man that was Jewish by faith and came into the crusade and actually went there to steal a leather coat. And Mamaleo confronted him, laid hands on him, and he got saved and delivered from his drug addiction. We have people like in Harlem, like the late Reverend Leroy Rixey, who actually was an African-American gentleman. Mamaleo sent him to Mispa in Puerto Rico to study the Bible. So the man would speak the word of God in English and in Spanish better than most Latinos do today. And actually, due to the work of the Lord in his life, received honorary degree, invitation to study at a prestigious university in New York City. We also got Johnny Jimenez, Reverend John Jimenez, that of the Roque Church International, that was saved there, amongst many that there are too many to name right now. But I will say that program was a mighty program. What was the Damascus Youth Crusade became Way Out Ministries, which is still in place today.
Right, definitely.
Yes.
I know you were going to bring that out, but and Mamaleo is also known to have really impacted Nikki Cruz. A lot of times we speak about, God bless him, David Wilkerson and his great ministry, but Mamaleo had a significant impact on Nikki Cruz. And so I wonder also, if we do some more work and some more digging, where did it begin and where did it end in terms of her influence? But again, we serve the Lord. Someone might plant, others might water, but God gives the increase. Amen.
Amen.
But Mamaleo was definitely had a part in Nikki Cruz's discipleship for sure. Definitely had a hand in that. So I wanted to mention that. Another thing that I wanted to say about Mamaleo is one of the things that I feel was so important about Mamaleo is that at that time, during that time, there weren't a lot of programs for youth. And she was a visionary when it came to seeing that there was a need to reach out to young people. Pentecostalism was wow, it was growing incredibly, right? However, the vision for youth was really not there yet. And Mamaleo had this vision for youth. It turns out that the ministries that we have that are dedicated, for example, to helping young people out of addiction, like Teen Challenge. Even Teen Challenge started after, I believe, it started after the program that Mamaleo started. So I mean, around the same time, but really afterwards, it was this vision she had for young people, and so that's one of the things that that I admire from Mamaleo.
Yes.
Following up with that, Reverend Roque, why do you think she was important in history? I think we're kind of answering that, but if you could add some more thing, why do you think she's important for church history, especially today? Why is he so important in church history?
Well, one thing I would like to say is that unlike us today, she moves as God called her to move. And today we will probably do so many things before we initiate a ministry. We'll launch a beta, we'll try to build a brand, we try to do so many things, but she heard the voice of God and moved based on what she heard. And for me, that's incredible. There were no resources, there was no assistance to help in the founding of this ministry. But yet, what I find incredible is that the community banded together and worked for this to happen. So as we celebrate Mamaleo, I also celebrate the community that supported Mamaleo because they couldn't do it alone. We had, for example, when the program was being run, we had a camp called Mountaindale. And as the addicts and the alcoholics and the workers came into the church, eventually they were sent to Mountaindale to receive, I would say, to break free from addictions and to have a place to rest and to get in order. And we had a community that would drive them, shuttle them back and forth from the Bronx to Mountaindale. We had a committee that would cook for them every day. And mind you, there were days that it was a miracle that they were fed because we didn't have no government sponsors. In fact, there's a story where they were cooking for a large number of people. And there was fear that there was not enough food inside the pots to feed everyone that was there. And it was amazing because the women that were cooking started to sense the presence of the Lord. And they started to feel as if God was multiplying the food because out of dos calderos de arroz and maybe some chicken that they had, they were able to feed over 100 people. And they were shocked of how God made provision. So I find that her obedience to be incredible. She didn't wait for a committee. She just started working and people backed her up. I also am encouraged by the way she was able to garner support. She was a tough woman. And I will tell you that a lot of people had a hard time dealing with her because she was strong. She had an expression she would say whenever she would preach. She said, Cristo es la cabeza de la iglesia y todos los demás son cabezones. And she would share that in our meetings and we would laugh. But it was what she was sharing was something that was so true, how stubborn God's people were sometimes. We need to listen to the head of the church. And that's what I take from her life, her obedience. I also take from her willingness to confront the patriarchy, and she would challenge the men leaders of the church with no fear. And for someone in her position, you would think you would back up, but she didn't. She just confronted them, and many loved her because of that, while others just couldn't deal with it. But I have to say, it was a trying time for women. Just recently, I shared with someone a bulletin from a Bible Institute, La Sinagoga, back in the day. And it was amazing to see the number of women that were there in that yearbook. And yet to think that out of all the women that were there, none of them became pastors. So it wasn't that the women weren't there to minister, they were not allowed. And now we're starting to see, as we move forward, how many women are now advancing to the position of pastor. We see female bishops. And I believe it's all because of people like her who were mavericks, that went forth and tread the way for them. And that's what I take from
Amen.
it. Um,
Reverend Roque, maybe you
yes,
can confirm something for me. I know one of the stories, and I don't know if this is myth or how true this is, but one of the stories is that there was a moment where I think Rockefeller was prepared to offer her like $12 million in a grant, but the stipulation was that she had to take Christ out of the name of the
Right.
ministry,
yes,
and that she said, you can, to Rockefeller, you can keep your $12 million. I'm going to keep my Christ.
yes.
So is that myth? Is that story, or is it true?
It's true. I don't know about the amount, but I will tell you that is true.
Mhm.
And afterwards, Rockefeller sent beds and supplies to the church to
So
help.
he still made
Wow.
contributions. Wow.
Correct, correct. And you got to give it to Nelson Rockefeller. He really was trying to help create harmony between all the communities at that time. New York was a cesspool at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So many different challenges. Definitely, that's another thing we got to consider when we talk about the narrative. How was New York back then? How was the Bronx back then? It was totally different than what we see right now. So I commend her also to stand up during those times and challenge and deal with these issues that were before them.
Very, very powerful. So
Yes.
that again, being a pioneer, Latina Pentecostal pastor, really, um, uh, and a minister, being a visionary, a visionary leader when it comes to doing work, holistic ministry work. Holistic ministry. It wasn't just, I'm going to tell you about Jesus, is I'm going to tell you about a Jesus that can change your life. And if you're in a situation of addiction, you're in a situation where you're out in the streets, I'm going to show you Jesus that can show you a better way. And this type of vision that God gave Mamaleo was a vision that impacted society. We have Rockefeller, recognizing, that there's something positive going on here.
Yeah.
And so it was a witness to society about the power of Jesus and how the church can be an agent for change and for wellness and wholeness in the city of New York and beyond. And so it was just a powerful witness. You were talking about how New York was during that time and being able to impact that. But what can you say? It's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful, wonderful. And a lot of people know about Mama Leo in terms of, word of mouth. Again, even my father-in-law somehow got blessed through a person who started a ministry through, that came out through Mama Leo. I just know so many people word of mouth. But I think it's time for us to learn some things, like as you were saying, so many great things, so many examples of faith, of power, and we believe that the same Holy Spirit is here today to
Yes.
do that
Amen.
work. If we don't allow maybe systemic, sexism to stop things from happening. We don't allow systemic racism, for that matter, to stop things from happening. We don't say it's an option, because no, the Lord has called me to do this. So she
Mm-hmm.
did a Deborah move. She did that Deborah move, and it impacted folks. It impacted people. It's still impacting, and we need to highlight that. And we need to people need to know about this, not only for history's sake, but for witness sake, for teaching, to show others, how putting yourself in God's hands could lead to so many wonderful things, and powerful things, transformative things.
Yes.
Oh,
It would be remiss of me not to mention that she also started another church in Queens right now, which is called La Iglesia Cristiana de Jamaica. She started
Mm-hmm.
this later on in life with her husband Cedric. Right now, the church is being currently pastored by Pedro Cubero. and Sonia Warren. And that church is a powerful testimony in the community as well.
Wow.
Amen. You know, as we've been sharing about Mamaleo, I see how her life challenges us, right, today. You know, have we become so sophisticated in our education, in our rationalization of things, trying to be really strategic and think through everything, waiting for el permiso, right? The permission to move forward, the permission to speak, the permission to take a leap of faith. And in some ways, and I'll speak for myself, right? There is this challenge to say, espérate, you know, who's called us to this work, right? And can we not believe God for great things? Can we not believe God for miraculous provision, even as he provided, right? With that, you know, 2 calderos de arroz y un poquito de pollo to feed the masses, right? Can we not, you know, step into that radical faith, you know, that ese fuego del espíritu, right? The fire of the Holy Spirit to believe God to do the impossible, to make a way where there is no way, right? When society is telling you, no, you can't do because you don't have this title, you're not the right gender, you don't come from the right pedigree. God is saying, I have chosen, right, the foolishness of this world to confound the wise, right? And I'm wondering if sometimes we need to get out of God's way and tap into sort of that radical faith and that openness to say, God, wherever you lead us, we will go. And not only will we go, but we're going to trust that you're going to provide everything that's needed so that we can transform our world. We can, you know, behold miracles, right? We can behold God's provision. We can behold change happening locally, nationally, internationally, on systemic levels. Like, I believe this is the time to really rise up and own our identity as the people of God, as the church of God, right? And I just, you know, my hope is that the spirit of Mamaleo and who she represents to us and how important she's been to our spiritual history and to the collective history of New York and the Pentecostal tradition, that will not just be a chapter in la historia that we can read and say, que bueno, aleluya, but that can be a chapter that can speak to our present day and say, we want to be able to serve in that way. We want to, in some ways, like, hold God to God's word, right? And believe in great things to happen because God is able. And maybe we need to unleash our faith in new ways, as she did, right? So I'm just wondering, as we're celebrating her memory, her legacy, why do you think, Brother Roque, that her legacy is so important in these times we're living in? You mentioned the context of New York during that time, right? There was so much happening, addiction and poverty and racism, and we're still confronting, right? So much division in our nation, and we're still confronting systemic racism. And there's so many conversations that still need to happen within, right, the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. How does Mamaleo's legacy sort of speak to the times we're living in today? Like, what is the charge for the people of God?
Great question. I will say that her ministry was in place to reach the least of these. And we need to continue reaching out to the least of these. Perhaps the audience is different, but there's still issues that need to be dealt with. We still need to deal with the homeless. We still need to deal with the undocumented immigrants. We still need to deal with food challenges that are faced in our communities. We have to deal with the teachings of our society that run counter to the teachings of God's word. People that are still questioning their identity. There's so many things that we can address. And we could take her witness and use it to trailblaze into the future and reach out to those that are being challenged right now. Jesus said, the poor will always be with us. So that means that we will continue to minister in this capacity. The only thing is, as the decades pass, the challenges are bigger, they're larger, and some of them are unfortunately similar issues that we had in the 60s, and we're still dealing with it. So I do believe that that helps us. I also believe that when we consider Leo, it's great that we're studying her life and other pioneers of the Pentecostal faith, the Latinx community, because by using their lives as a template, we can learn so much as to how we should navigate in our ministries. In fact, I believe we should be doing greater works. Back then, they didn't have no church planting institutes. Now we have church planting groups. Now we have movements that are dedicating funding to help establish churches throughout the United States and abroad. So we have more resources. We have more education. I believe we should be doing more. The one thing that is needed that no man could give you is the calling from God. If you don't have the calling from God, you have no place in ministry. So if you want to launch out and start a church, start it with the right spirit. Start it with the guidance of the Spirit. Don't start it in rebellion. Start it in the right spirit so that God could use you to reach others. And I believe we'll see greater things as these dark days go forward.
Reverend Roque, just as a quick follow-up, I'm wondering if there's something here for men in leadership. I think I heard some stories of her husband, Francisco, sometimes stepping aside to allow his wife to take the pulpit, to preach one night when he was the one that was invited. Yes. We talk a lot about sometimes decentering whiteness in the church. Are there ways that we need to decenter maleness? And did Francisco model that? In other ways, is there something there for us as men in leadership? Because there are still so many men who are leading, and often women are not leading in maybe ways that the Holy Spirit would commission them to.
Well, that's a great question, and I wasn't expecting that one, but definitely we got to rock the roles. We have to start to see that there's not a task that is for a female as well as a task for a male. Her husband saw her giftings in preaching and teaching, and therefore surrendered and allowed her to minister. I understand his gifting was in administration and the like, and I have some pictures of him with Billy Graham and the how can I say leading mass crusades in the city. So he was very important to the ministry. But I also believe he was subject to the leading of the Spirit and allowed his wife to lead and to preach and to teach because she had the word for the evening. So I think that's a lesson for all of us. We got to rock the roles. Husbands, learn how to cook. Learn how to do laundry, learn how to do whatever your wife is usually doing, even though that has nothing to do with the show, but learn how to do that. We have to rock the roles so that we can advance together as married couples in the ministry. And that's another thing that was beautiful. It's always wonderful to see clergy couples. Praise the Lord. And what I like about clergy couples, I like to see them not competing with each other, but letting the others lead with their strength. And that's a beautiful thing. Not that she's your trophy wife or a trophy husband, but that they're working alongside with you in the ministry.
Amen. And just know that I rocked those roles a while ago. Because I do believe in full liberation, right? We think about liberation within society, and we think about liberation even within our families and within even the marital units, right? So that we're not hindering one another, as you shared, brother, from living forth the calling of God on our lives, right? And that we're not going to be struggling with insecurity, because you may have giftings that I don't, and I may have giftings that you don't, but that together, right, we can complement one another and make a greater impact. But I think we just got to make room for the Spirit of God to move as she pleases. And I did say she. We need to make room for the Spirit of God to move as she pleases amongst us. And I think that as we lean into the fact that these are different times, and as you shared, there are tons of resources, but we could have all the resources of the world, but resources without calling is incomplete. Resources without faith, right, is incomplete. We're talking about faith in action, like daring to believe in the full gospel of Jesus Christ, full liberation for the masses, for the oppressed, for those in prison, right, to feed the hungry, to clothe the poor. And if we step into that ministry rooted in justice, which is what the Word of God is rooted in, right, and is so often overlooked because we get caught up with one or two issues that dominate the conversation. But if we consider that we are called to social justice, and we are called to really take systems and turn them upside down and challenge the status quo, and we move with that authority and we move together, then I believe that we will behold the move of God and miracles like we never have before. Because I do agree with you, Brother Roque, our impact could be so much greater. And it's not that God is limited, but maybe we are limiting God's move amongst us because of our own sophistications or lack of faith or daring to believe for something other than what we can see and hear with our natural senses. So I am personally just very encouraged in this conversation and talking about, who Mamaleo was, and for her story to come forth through your experiences, right, and through the oral histories and all of our experiences with her as well. And I want to share an announcement that is upcoming. And I want to just take a few minutes, and I'm super excited about this because this is my alma mater, Union Theological Seminary, and in partnership with Dr. Samuel Cruz, who's the Associate Professor of Religion and Society, they are establishing for the very first time the Mamaleo Latinx Lecture Series to honor her legacy as a Latinx pioneer in the New York City faith community. And this lecture series, this is the hope, folks, that it can be held annually to recognize this unconventional yet pragmatic leader who was a mover and a shaker and dedicated so many years of service to our city and to lives throughout. So we're hoping that we can invite speakers to focus on Latinx ministry and social justice through these lectures, and fundraising efforts are now underway. I made it my business to go on the website, and our brother Lewis has shared the link below in the chat to make my first contribution. And my hope is to continue to contribute to this effort. But the goal is to raise $150,000 to sustain the series for years to come. Again, you can get more information on that link. You can make a one-time donation, a recurring donation. And if you want more information, our very own Dr. Liz Rios will be able to answer questions, and she can speak to you about sponsorship levels. And the first lecture, the inaugural lecture series, will be held on February 19th. Of next year. So mark your calendars. This is going to be exciting for all of us as a comunidad, as folks rooted in our Pentecostal tradition. And we really want to support this effort to elevate our heroes and sheroes who have been somewhat lost in history. And we want to make sure those stories get told and heard, and they continue to speak to us today. So I'll pass it over to Brother Luis, and he'll share about upcoming steps.
Absolutely. And so we'll be sharing again. We'll be sharing the link in the comments regarding the donations for the lecture. And I want to let you know that around the time of the lecture, around probably in January, at the end of January, we'll be again talking about Mamaleo and making sure that you know about the lecture that's going to be taking place at Union Theological Seminary. We're looking forward to it. We want to celebrate this legacy, and when we want to be a part of it. I hope you want to be a part of it also. I want to recognize some folks that are out there. Of course, Dr. Liz, Dr. Liz is out there. Dr. Liz Rios is out there, part of the Latino Leadership Circle. She could not be on the broadcast, but she's hanging there. So I want to recognize. I saw also Reverend Jose. Also, Humphreys is out there. Again, part of the LLC, also always supporting us. Want to recognize also Cito Ortiz. Reverend Ortiz is out there also. I wanted to recognize him, and he's actually on the committee, right? As is Reverend Roque for Mamaleo lecture series. So looking forward to listen. And I see Jacqueline D. Thompson there also. Reverend Thompson is there. Also want to shout out to her. If you have any questions before we wrap up, if you have any questions or comments, please place them in the comments area. We'd love to answer some questions. So we're going to open it up for a few moments. If not, we'll keep it going. All right. So if you have any questions right now, we're going to open it up.
And as we gather those questions, I wanted to ask Brother Roque, who, again, we're just so honored to have you join us. And we know this will not be the last time. Esta mesa es tu mesa, esta casa es su casa. And we just feel so blessed to have had you share with us. Is there anything you want to add, brother, regarding the lecture series at Union that I did not mention that you think will help our audience get a better sense of what they can expect coming up?
Well, I will say that something that comes along with the lecture series is we're going to have space in the Union Theological Library to put items, documents, or anything related to Sister Leo in the library. So it will be preserved for future generations. And I'm excited about that because they'll have documents and items that are of historical value that will help them understand pioneers like Mamaleo, but also understand the Latin Hispanic Pentecostal community. There's the problem with that we've been encountering is that a lot of the documents and the narratives were never written down or never saved. So I would encourage anyone that has a document, a picture, or anything to reach out to me or any member of the committee so we could seek to archiving it in the library, which I think will be great as you move forward. I enjoy going to the library and seeing original articles and pictures and the like. I think that will be great for people to understand that time period.
Awesome. Thank you. And Union has a pretty phenomenal library. I spend many hours throughout my 3-year journey there, and to have her included amongst those spiritual giants, right, that have informed our faith and our theology, it's definitely the right space for those documents to be in. So very exciting news.
Yes. And mind you, it doesn't have to be something printed. It could be a video. I just received a video of the late Bishop John Jimenez from the Rock Church talking about Sister Leo and his experience at Damascus. So I believe even the videos, MP4s and MP3s could be saved and archived at the library as well. So I'm looking forward to having that established. That's, I think, one of the greater things coming out of this.
Hey, Reverend, also, as Dr. Liz has said in the comments, you are actually receiving pictures or any kind of artifacts.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
What we could do is later on also, you could tell us maybe where to send it, how they can make these artifacts, how they make their way to you. We could probably put that in the comments. But
sure, I'm willing to share my email and an address to mail them. If necessary.
All right, very good, very good. So we'll post your. I just don't want to post your like private stuff. If you have a PO box or you have some place, we'll discuss that. We'll make it available.
Yes, definitely. I don't have a PO box. Thank you.
All right, you can pass by the church. The pastors, at Hunts Point, Amen Church, and I'm sure you can pass by, have a conversation also with the Reverend, soon to be Doctor Jonathan Roque.
Yes.
Amen.
Can you share your church address and your services?
Sure. Well, currently we're meeting online due to challenges with our building right now. But the church address is located at 837 Manida Street. I'm going to type it in the room here.
Sure. And
so, you can have it 837 Manida Street, Bronx, New York 10474. And it's the Damascus Christian Church of Hunts Point.
Very good. Very good. We'll put that out there. I see Dr. Liz also talking about registration for those that want to join on February 19th. So there is also an opportunity, and we'll also place that out there. All right. So it says Dr. Liz is talking about following the Facebook page. There's a Facebook page that we'll make available also after the broadcast regarding the Mamaleo series. I have a question from Reverend Cito Ortiz, soon to be Doctor too, because he's working on that. Here's the question.
Yes. Yes, I have to look. He's asking about the earliest yearbook I have of a Bible Institute. I actually met with Cito and a few people from the committee, and I had a yearbook from La Sinagoga. I think it was 1953. I have to start digging and looking for more. But it was interesting because he found a lot of folks that he knew through this bulletin yearbook. And so I think it was 1953, but I'm going to check because I have some other stuff. My mother, who was, when she came from Puerto Rico, landed in Damascus, actually, her legacy for me, she left me all her pictures and yearbooks and all these things. And that's what I'm sharing. So I will be sharing those as well. And I see Cito's comment.
Yeah,
a heart attack.
So, we also have the Reverend Dr. Roberto Cha Romero with us also, and he's just giving us some praise hands also, doing some great work in history in the Brown Church. Excellent work.
Yes,
we recommend all that stuff, all the stuff that comes out with, so we recommend.
Roque, Dr. Roque, I mean, so soon to be Dr. Roque, and just in terms of your doctorate that you're working on, how much longer do you have to go? How can we keep you in prayer do you see the end in sight? And how can we be praying for you?
Amen. Pray so that I could keep up with the project. The expected date of graduation is 2023.
Amen.
So keep me in prayer. The project is on gentrification in the 10474 zip code of the Bronx. So I'm working on that project right now, more as to measure knowledge of gentrification and its implications in our community, which is happening right now.
Yeah. Amen.
These action research projects are incredible. Definitely. I just need your prayers. It may be the one prayer that I don't think will ever be answered if I could have more than 24 hours in a day, but that's not going to happen. So just so that I can make the best of the time that I have left with the project. Time management, definitely.
Amen. And so on that note, I'm wondering, should we close out in prayer and bless our brother Roque and support him in his journey as he completes this doctoral process. So Brother Orlando, Brother Lewis.
Belinda, I would love for you to close us off.
This is Sheila.
La única mujer aquí en el grupo. Okay, I'm going to do it.
Your part, yes.
La unción de-
La unción de Dios. Aleluya. Let us pray.
Amen.
Lord, we thank you so much for this time of sharing, of celebration of one of our great spiritual ancestors, warriors, leaders, pioneers, Mamaleo. Lord, I thank you for the fruit that she has borne throughout this country, even throughout this world. That the seed she has planted through her ministry and through all the people that she has touched, Lord, has just emanated throughout the globe. And we thank you that her ministry continues to breathe life and restoration and liberation to people everywhere. We pray that we will continue to lean in and live into this legacy of power, of faith, of miracles, of redemption, of community transformation. And we thank you for our brother Roque, Lord, for his time tonight, for his sharing of her story, of elevating her to our audience and even to us. We've learned so much, and we've been able to even rejoice in Mamaleo's history and in what she's left for all of us. We pray especially that you would bless our brother, that he would grant him all that he needs, time management, wisdom, discipline, perseverance, as he continues on this doctoral journey, Lord, that he may continue, Lord, to impact his community and the greater world to the glory and honor of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Bless every listener. Bless everyone who will hear this podcast. And we pray even now for this lecture series,
Amen.
that your spirit would be upon it and that her legacy would just radiate throughout this world. Let this be even a revival amongst your people, that same spirit that provided when there was no provision would be that same spirit, Lord, that would give the increase to all that we are committed to in our ministries, in our families, in our communities. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend, and thank you, audience. We love you. Looking forward to having you on our next podcast. God bless you. Dios le bendiga. Dios le guarde.
Good night.